Hello Godottians, it's Andy here with another video in the Godot Defender game development using Godot Engine. This time we will be building the main scene, which you can see here. We have a plane and we have a scrolling background which contains the terrain and some UFOs. We will also be looking at how to move the plane around and adjust the scrolling speed. This is the main scene. You can see that there is a Parallax background node, a player node, and an animation player node. The Parallax background allows us to scroll the background, and we will scroll it left and right. If we look at the properties for the Parallax background, we're interested in the offset values, so we're going to change the scroll offset to move the scene left and right according to the speed that we're moving at. We've attached a Parallax layer child node. This allows us to scroll our terrain by making terrain an instance of the terrain scene as a child of this Parallax layer. What we want to do for this layer is specify mirroring so that it will repeat as it gets to the ends of the scene when it's scrolling. So we need to set the motion mirroring X value. We'll do that in code when we know what size our terrain scene is. Player is just a sprite at the moment. Later I'll probably make that into a player scene when it has more functionality. Let's look at the main GD script. This extends Node 2D and starts with some constant definitions. Thrust is going to be used to apply acceleration to movement of the scene, the scrolling speed. The player speed applies to movements of the player up and down, and when it has to change sides on the screen from left to right or right to left. So that movement speed is defined by this. It's a fixed speed and it's a vector 2 because we've got the Y component and an X component. And player margin is how far away the player settles from the left and right edges of the viewport. And we've got some nums for left and right direction. And the variables, these are references to the Parallax background, the terrain and the animation player, just to make it easy to access these nodes in the code. And we also specify the type, so when we are editing our code, the editor can recognize what type of node it is and give us a list of the methods and properties that are available to us. And we have variables for the player node and a scroll position value and the speed of the scrolling and the player direction value starting with pointing to the right. So in the ready function we assign our values to the references for background, player and anim, and to allow for renaming of the Parallax layers later when we add more, such as a star background. We get the reference to the terrain by finding the node called terrain. And to set the motion mirroring X value for the Parallax layer, we go terrain, get parent, and then we set the motion mirroring X value to the last point in the terrain scene, which is a property we store in that scene. And then we call our start game function. So when we start the game, we set the player's initial X position to the left margin, and structures will be covered in another tutorial. And on each frame the process delta function is called, and we process our various functions in turn, starting with process the inputs. So let's look at processing the inputs, and if the input is action pressed UI left, we want to speed up the scrolling rate to the left. So we do that by adding thrust times delta to the speed variable, and using the clamp function we clamp it to a maximum speed. And if the action pressed is UI right, then we want to go slow down any left scrolling speed and move towards accelerating to the right up to the maximum speed. So we go speed minus thrust times delta. And if action is pressed UI up, we want to move the player upwards as long as its position hasn't gone past the top point of the screen. So if is action pressed UI up and the player is still on the screen with a Y value greater than 0, we subtract player speed Y times delta from the player position Y value, moving the player upwards. And if we have UI down and the player position Y is less than the terrain base level, so we are above the base level of the terrain, we may move the player downwards by adding the player speed Y times delta to the player position dot Y. And that handles the 4 movement directions for the player. And the next function that is called every frame is move the background. So for this function we adjust the scroll position by adding the speed times delta value to it. And then we set the scroll offset .x value of the background to this scroll position. Next we look at if we need to turn the player. In the turn player function we check if the player direction equals right and the speed has become greater than 0, so it's starting to move in the other direction, we change that direction to left. And we print out the output window the player turn left, and also we play an animation called player turn, which animates it turning. And if the player direction is left and the speed has become negative, passed through the 0, and it's moving in the other direction, we want to set the player direction to the right and write to the output window it turn right and play the animation for player turning backwards. Let's look at the animation player, and it's going to animate the turning of the plane. So if we zoom in to the timeline, we've given this animation a name called player turn and made it last for 200 milliseconds, as we can see there. And we have 2 keyframes. If we click on player, the player scale has got this keyframe setting. So if we adjust the scale X from 1, put it at 0 say, and we see the thin line where the player was, then if we go -1, it's turned it around. Or part wave rotation can be done with say 0.5. So put that back to 1. And what we do, we keyframe it on the timeline for our different rotation values. So at the 0 position on the timeline, this keyframe has a value 1, 1. And then at the end of the 200 milliseconds of this clip, we have a value of -1, 1. So if we play this, you can see the animation, it swings it, and then if we go backwards, it goes in the opposite direction. So to turn, we just play this player turn animation and go forwards or backwards. So finally, in our process delta function, we are going to call a move player sideways function. In this function, we calculate the player speed, which is player speed x times delta, and then we do some checks to see where it is. If the player direction is left, and we find that the player distance to the right is greater than 0, that means it's not at the rightmost margin, so it should be moved. So we call a function which we've called change position with the value of the player speed. And similarly, if the If the plane is pointing to the right, it should be at the move towards the left margin. So if the distance away from the left is greater than 0, we call the change position with a negative value of player speed. Let's look at the change position function. This simply adds the value that we passed in, which we call delta, and it adds it to the x position of the player. And also the scroll position of the background has to be moved as well to add this extra speed to it. And by playing the game we can see what this looks like. So I speed up the plane and then I slow down, and as it hits 0 it speeds up in the opposite direction and has to move to the other margin. So that's that code in operation there. So I think I've covered everything in the main scene now and the script, so I look forward to publishing another video probably covering the structures that we see placed on the terrain. And so that's a wrap for today, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Cheers, have a great day.